Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about depression, how to overcome depression with natural things, okay? The first thing that I look at if someone's depressed is that number one, I want to make sure that it's not a lack of sleep, it's not chronic fatigue syndrome, because what happens, depression feels like you're really, really tired all the time. You know, if someone hasn't slept that well, they're going to become tired, chronically fatigued, and that's going to feel just like depression. So I always like to find out about the person's sleep. If the person's sleep is a problem, we're going to go after that, and that usually can bring them up. I have yet to find a person who is fully energetic, tons of energy, and depressed at the same time. So you have appropriate depression, like you lost something or you lost a loved one, and then you have inappropriate depression where there's no reason to be depressed and then you're depressed. So of course that's what we're talking about right here. People want alternatives to psychiatric drugs, okay? So these are some things that we're going to talk about. Number one, we want to differentiate between depression and anxiety. Depression is like apathy. I don't care anymore. Hopeless, weepy, the blues, okay? That's what depression is. Anxiety is stressed, worry, excessive thinking, panic attacks, completely different emotion. Okay, so I just wanted to differentiate that. A lot of times depression comes from a vitamin B3 deficiency. Okay, anxiety comes from a B1 deficiency, but we'll get more into that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the diet. Does the person eat a lot of junk foods? Of course, if you try to fix depression on top of a junk food junkie and they're eating all this junk, it's not going to work. So we want to evaluate, are they eating, donuts and Twinkies and all this other stuff? I want to correct the eating plan, get the junk out of the trunk, right? So then we have blood sugars. That's the second thing I check, because if the blood sugars are too high or too low, that can create depression, especially hypoglycemia and also insulin resistance. I have a ton of videos on that, but when those blood sugars are not right, because think about it, insulin helps push sugar into the brain. So if you have insulin resistance and you can't push the fuel into the brain, then the brain gets all funky and it doesn't work right. So you're not going to feel good. So we need that blood sugar to go into the brain correctly. So if you have a pre-diabetic state because your blood sugars are messed up because you eat terrible, that could be why you're depressed. So I will go right after that and fix that. Again, I'll put some links down below if you might have a blood sugar issue. Sleep, that's the big one. I really make sure the sleep is handled fully. Mostly a sleep problem comes from a lot of stress. So there's two things I'd use. I have a remedy for, it's like a adrenal night formula, which calms adrenals, puts the person out so they can sleep. Or I'll use an acupressure tool to physically manipulate the body to pull stress out that way, and that really calms the person down because they're all just tense. So those are the two things that I use for sleep. But then let's just talk about serotonin. The way that some of the psych drugs work is they kind of recycle that last drop of serotonin you have to trick your body into thinking it has serotonin when it really doesn't. Serotonin is a hormone that is a mood elevator. It helps with cravings, and it's kind of like the hormone in the nervous system. It's called a neurotransmitter. Okay, so let's say there's a problem with serotonin, you could be depressed from that. But what I like to do is look at what turns into serotonin. There's a amino acid called l-tryptophan. Okay, l-tryptophan. It was really popular in the 80s. In fact, they were selling billions of dollars worth of l-tryptophan. And in 1990, March 22, they had this outbreak in Japan, that some bad batch that created this rare disease. And so the FDA banned that natural amino acid because people were using it for depression and weight loss and sleep and cravings. They banned it, and then 4 days later on Newsweek they came out with this huge promotion on the new miracle antidepressant drug Prozac. Is that a coincidence? So we have this whole relationship here. And then exactly 19 years later, 2001 I think it was, the FDA lifted this ban right when the patents ran out of Prozac. I wonder if that's also a coincidence. So we have the situation where people went chemical for a while, and then they went away from l-tryptophan. But l-tryptophan turns into serotonin. It's a natural amino acid. There's no side effects. You want to take it on empty stomach because it's a larger protein and it can compete with other proteins that you're eating. So if you eat some protein with L-tryptophan, it won't work. So you have to have an empty stomach. But L-tryptophan is a natural precursor to the serotonin that can help the mood, cravings, and sleep. L-tryptophan also makes vitamin B3. Remember this connection we talked about right there? So B3 can actually also come from tryptophan, which is interesting. So another thing that will cause a B3 deficiency is doing too much alcohol, history of an alcoholic, liver damage, refined grains, breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, things like that. Eating too much corn or corn products, that can deplete vitamin B3. And most people kind of know that's bad. But let's say, for example, you start taking B3 or you start taking L-tryptophan and you don't see any difference with your depression. Well, what you could do is do this one last thing, because it takes a real strong digestive system to absorb those two elements. And if there's any colon damage, if you have diverticulitis or Crohn's or irritable bowel syndrome or damage to your colon, that could be the reason why these things are not working. So what you want to do is you want to add a little lactic acid, okay, from either kombucha tea or sauerkraut or fermented vegetables. So that's where you can get lactic acid. That seems to really help the absorption of B3 and tryptophan. So a lot of the digestive issues, it's like a second brain, could affect your mood if you put this lactic acid back in. So at the health food store, they have kombucha tea. You can take that and just drink one a night. It calms you down. It makes you feel good. But people that are lactose intolerant, they can't make lactic acid that well. And that could be why they're even depressed, because they're not metabolizing these other elements right here. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overall breakdown of some possible reasons why people are depressed. This is a common one down here with the digestion. Blood sugars are also common. Sleep is common. And so which one indicates to you, go ahead and correct that and see if you can't also improve that emotion. Thank you so much for watching.